Hi, everyone. Welcome. You are back, we hope, to another event at this year's Writers Festival, the longest continuously running literary festival in the Southeast. My name is Nicole Stammet, and I am Associate Professor and Chair of English at Agnes College. As we turn 50, we are celebrating all week long with many different kinds of events. And tomorrow, we are bringing back two Writers Festival favorites. Returning as distinguished guests this year are the incomparable poet Rita Dove and Agnes's own Jacqueline Goldfinger, class of 2000. We have a full schedule slide here, and once things get underway, I'll put the link to the calendar in the chat. But tomorrow, we will have a question and answer session with Rita Dove and Jackie Goldfinger at 1 p.m. And then at 4, we are hosting an exciting roundtable of writers who won the Writers Festival contest in their year, in their category, which will be moderated by Agnes's own, Professor Camila Aisha Moon, herself a contest winner. At 8, you absolutely will not want to miss Rita Dove's reading. As you can see, it is a whirlwind of literature and a celebration of conversations about poetry, books, and writing. The complete list of events can be accessed via calendar.agnescott.edu. And please also take a look at Karis Books' virtual book booth, which has information about how to purchase some of the works featured this week. I'll put that link in the chat too, so you can easily get to it. And now for tonight's event, a poetry reading from the amazing Tiana Clark. This event is part of the Georgia Poetry Circuit, and Agnes Scott's membership in the circuit is supported by the Kirk Fund. This fund enriches and bolsters academic programs in history, music, literature, art, and philosophy. The Georgia Poetry Circuit is a consortium of 10 Georgia colleges and universities working together to bring 3 poets of national and international reputation annually to all members' campuses, providing important access to the literary arts for Georgia residents across the state. At each institution, poets give a free and open reading of their work and meet with students. Earlier today, Ms. Clark met with Dr. Meyer Lee's Theory and Methods class for an intimate, extended question and answer session. We also imagine she's exhausted, so it's been a big week. Our membership in this invaluable consortium is made possible by the James T. and Ella Rather Kirk Fund, which was established by alumna, artist, writer, and trustee Mary Wallace Kirk in honor of her parents. Before we get going, I have a couple of reminders. We recommend using SpeakerView to get the most out of this event. And if you have questions, please use either the raise hand feature or type your question into the chat box. We'll have about a 30-minute reading followed by a question and answer session. And so we definitely want to hear your questions. I'm going to now stop my screen share and hand things over to the wonderful Zion Martin class of 2021, who will give an introduction.
Hi everyone, my name is Zion Martin and I have the honor of introducing a wonderful poet this evening, Mrs. Tiana Clark. She was raised in Southern California and in Tennessee. Clark received her BA in Africana and Women's Studies from Tennessee State University and her MFA from Vanderbilt University. She has received various awards, some including the 2017 Various Flowers Gwendolyn Brooks Centennial Poetry Prize, the 2015 Rattle Poetry Prize, winner of the 2019 Pushcart Prize. She's won the 2016 Frost Place Chapbook Competition and received an Agnes Lynch Starrett Prize and the Kate Tufts Discovery Award for her most recent poetry collection called I Can't Talk About the Trees Without the Blood. She has also appeared in some amazing magazines and journals, including The New Yorker, Poetry Magazine, Kenyon Review, New England Review, The Washington Post, Best New Poets 2015, and more. Obviously very established. Clark currently teaches creative writing at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I became more familiar with Mrs. Clark's work while exploring intersection of creative writing within my own poetry and discourse on Blackness through race theory. Inspired by her ability to storytell and her collection of poems, I Can't Talk About the Trees Without the Blood, with her vulnerability, her emotion turned into text, her experiences, her introspective tone, the artistry of her imaginative spirit in her poems like Conversation with Phyllis Wheatley, numbers 1, 2, 7, and 14, and The Rhyme of Nina Simone, a few of my favorite. I wanted to read one of my favorite lines from her poem, An Imagined Dialogue with Miss Nina Simone and The Rhyme of Nina Simone. It is not enough for you to be young, gifted, Black, and angry, or write a few poems about the body, the body, the body, she says, mocking me with her hands, then points her diaphanous finger in my face. You have to stay mad your whole damn life. You have to make love to the damage in your mind, return to the throbbing meadow. You will know pang when you enter the middle of its wild scrape. It is poetry like this that I think of things with deeper meaning in life and within my own writing. I found myself innately gravitated to her work because of her talent for truth telling. It is rare that someone like Clark comes along to tell us how it is, educates us on ourselves, and makes us take a deeper look at ourselves and the world reflecting back. For me and for others who read her work, I'm sure she creates a collection that guides you to explore your own emotions and traumas in deeper joy. For that, I want to say thank you. Poems like Deadbug and Tim provided me with a community with the text and an articulation that was remedied in relation that provided further closure. So I say thank you. Thank you for allowing your work to speak so loudly that it makes us understand ourselves a little more and dive deeper into our own thoughts. In an interview with 30 North Literary Magazine, where she was asked what truth she was trying to tell, she responded, I'm writing to save my own life. Such a powerful voice and story behind a great work. You have brought more truth to my own work and the way I think things through as a person who also writes to save her own life. I'm honored to have the opportunity to introduce a woman who has inspired me and whose voice I hope spreads around the world to people who need to hear her words and experience her art. I give you Mrs. Tiana Clark.
Oh my gosh, Zion, that was amazing. Everybody clap and show some love in the chat. That was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for your time and gift of attention, and just all the research you did, and also weaving in your personal experiences and spending just a thoughtful engagement with my work. That was such a beautiful introduction. I've given introductions before. I know that it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, and you did such an excellent job. I felt so seen, and to me, it's such a gift. I always hope that my work means that much to somebody. So to hear your gratitude, I meet you on that bridge, and just thank you with a huge heart. So thank you so much for your time and your brilliance, and thank you. And thank you, Nicole, so much for your introduction, and thank you all for being here tonight. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you so much to the Georgia Poetry Circuit and Agnes Scott College. I'm so excited, and y'all, Rita Dove, that's amazing that you have Rita Dove speaking this week. That's so cool. Rita Dove was very transformative for me in high school, and I'm also excited Camila Aishamoon is here. We share the same creative writing teacher in high school, so it's very cool to inhabit this virtual space with you. I wish I could be there in person, of course, but we will take the Zoom universe right now, and please make use of the chat. As a poet now reading in this new kind of frontier, I don't hear your ums and your ahs in the audience, and so please throw some love in the chat if you feel so led. I just want to go ahead and give a blanket content warning. I don't normally do this, but I am going to read some poems tonight that I actually don't normally read, because in the earlier discussion that I had in the Q&A and some of the poems that you all read, I thought I would just, in that spirit of vulnerability and courage, I would read some of those poems tonight, but they do have some content warning around sexual assault and some dramatic events. So I just want to go ahead and say that in the front, just in case you have some little ears listening. I'm also going to start with a newer poem that's not in the collection, and then I'll get into the full length I Can't Talk About the Trees Without the Blood, because earlier we were talking about kind of the male gaze, or the gaze in the Black body, or the female body, and for me, the Black female body. And so I wanted to read this newer poem that I have called The first Black Bachelorette to kind of continue that conversation that we were kind of having about bell hooks and Audrey and Rich and all of those great writers and thinkers. So the first Black Bachelorette. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, great. When Brian was kissing Rachel and slid his hand inside her hair, her long, long hair, I wondered if he felt threaded tracks of weave and what he thought when he felt her weave. Was he startled or did he know? But when he reached for her, I felt his fingers on my scalp too. I did through the TV, I swear. I was wincing. My white guy doesn't like fake things, but I like my fake hair long and my real hair protected, my glory tucked and hidden, something easy and fast. I'm hoping it will grow too. I wonder who does Rachel's hair on the show, blending her leave out with her natural hair, who slicks her edges down with good grease and a boar brush when the wind blows back her baby hairs. There was an episode once on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with the actress Tisha Campbell. The premise, they were on a date and stuck in a basement for hours. She stripped off her weave, fake nails, contacts, and eyelashes. She molted. Will then asks, now what else on your body can I get at the mall? RuPaul says we're all born naked and the rest is drag. Derek has a list of funny drag names and I want one. I want to be called what I really am or what I pretend to be, which I guess in a way is me, or someone who I think might be beautiful enough to be approached, discovered. Someone who doesn't have to pay for movers, someone who walks into a party and doesn't have to be anxious because the privilege of their beauty makes them at rest and people find vacations in their faces. I require something fake, woven and glued, stuck to my body, but not of my body. How does a body even start? Sometimes my eyes feel thick and weird from fresh eyelash extensions. In the beginning, my head hurt from the braided ropes of hair encircling my scalp tight. But you want it tight, she says. You want the cornrows so small that your fake hair looks passable. And hope you take the pain. It takes so damn long to be almost beautiful. I've sat in salon chairs all day with Black women behind me, laboring and taming my mane. I like the pattern crop circles carved into my scalp right before the wefts of somebody else's Brazilian hair are sewn like human icing into mine, delicious. I want the fire to smell a type of threaten me and back away. I want the fire to know I was already consumed, burned inside my belonging. There is a hankering, a hungry choir that craves money and porn, meaning my thoughts are well lit, staged, and faking it too. Even my soul is pre-oiled, fluffed, bleached, waxed, nubile, licking, and staring down the camera to ash. The trick is looking like you like it, like you enjoy getting slammed, which is why I like being groomed, getting yanked, painted, cut, and plucked. I've been on all fours as a woman ripped me from my center where I split in jeweled halves. I did not yell as I bit my lip, grabbed the corners. I enjoy how people look at me when they think I might be beautiful. I enjoy porn best when I think they might be enjoying themselves too, when there might be real pleasure at stake, but who can say really not showing pain gets you paid? It takes a lot of money to look this trashy, Dolly Parton says, and yet Rachel, who scratches your dandruff like tea cake in chapter 11 and their eyes were watching God, who detangles and combs your hair with deep conditioner, who wraps your hair at night. Has Brian seen you in your silk bonnet yet? You know it's real when you're riding on top with your hair wrapped. Lala says she was never ugly, just poor. I want my teeth fixed and chiseled, but veneers are so expensive. I hide my coffee-stained crooked things. Cardi B raps, got a bag and fixed my teeth. Hope you hoes know it ain't cheap. So I try to hide the unevenness in my teeth when I talk, which means sometimes I don't talk when I can see myself. I try to hide the gaps, how sharp my teeth really are, how animal, how lower class, how cash poor my mouth really is. I don't look pretty when I come. My mouth open, my jaw slack and sideways pulling spit. My dead eyes fixed on one object in the room. This time a chair, this time a corner half in shadow. This time I just wanted to watch a Black woman on TV fall in love for entertainment or escape. The best cure for microaggressions is shitty TV and again, Cardi B. Ahmad says, for us American Blacks, we are post-apocalyptic. The end is not near, but behind us. We are what remains of our 6 million dead. We are what was not hung, dumped, or flung from the zong, splashing and graveless, lest you think the ocean a tombstone The ocean is not scared or sacred enough, but we out here anyway, trying to save ourselves still sprinkling black pepper behind our feet as we run away. But there is no north now. We find the drinking gourd within ourselves, guiding stars within our own blacklit blood, we glow. Maybe it's true then that beauty is a type of survivor's guilt, a sackcloth I suffer an injure from and for, or rather that I am see through sin. Dirty, Hottentot zoo is my body. I was such a terrible Lady Macbeth in high school. Hermania didn't make sense to me until it was activated in me when a man left me in my blood in 20s. There is a type of grief I carry in my hands, some dark, unwipeable thought, some liquid other, like my daddy's DNA, his spots. I'm trying to cover them with this talk of beauty. I'm repenting for something, I don't know what. I wasn't meant to be born, but ain't I a beautiful bastard? And doesn't everybody want to be cleaned by slices of jailed light? Yeah, it's true. I want my eyebrows microbladed for $700. There are specific times when I don't want to be wanted. Number 1, at night. Number 2, when I'm alone. Number 3, at night when I'm walking alone to my car. Number 4, an empty parking lot. Number 5, a man approaches. Number 6, he sniffs me, knowing that familiar scent of pressure and piss from other men that have marked me too. 7, didn't they touch me because I was beautiful, or did they sense what was easy to poke? I've always wondered what made a slave beautiful enough to be raped. What about the body made it worth it to commit a sin on what they deemed a damned body? Maybe beauty had nothing to do with it. Of course, it's always about power, but maybe there was a type of sheen, lacquer on black bodies baking under sun, or funk from the field, or the house slave dilating from room to room, a physiological scent that niggles, perhaps. How close desire is to a type of terror owned and familiar. When I get ready with golden highlighter, is that what I am? What I accentuate? From my cheekbone to sparkle in the spectral light of my dead belling inside me, the sparkle of dead slaves is forever in me, still so iridescent. Keats wrote, beauty is truth, truth, beauty, that is all. I don't know what that means. I've had some dark inkling about its succinct finality. Even in class, I pretended to know what the poem was about when I would discuss ekphrasis and the Grecian urn to my students, telling them about art, responding to art, and how to make a static image sing. But even then, I was pretending. I don't want to be dumb. My worst fear, a bunch of students would all point and call me a fraud. I once asked Mark, my professor in grad school, when I would stop feeling like an imposter. He said I would feel this way for the rest of my life, which I think is closer to some type of truth, which is attractive because it provides relief to know everyone might be just as insecure and afraid of others as me, and possibly watching The Bachelorette on Monday nights. Like when I found out on the podcast Commonplace, Sharon Olds loves the show too. I squealed because I wasn't alone anymore. I'm not writing for mastery or legacy. I could care less. In fact, I might be writing against it, a way of talking back to beauty, back to the spoiled fruit on the altar of my body, to the pressurized gaze on my skin every damn day. I'm hyper aware that I'm hyper visible, says Hope Aloye, 20, from Newham, East London, the only Black biomedical student in her year at Oxford, who hasn't been broken by a touch, who hasn't been barbed by a glare. You can't write poems about beauty when the streets are full of racists and rapists and the president is a pussy grabber. I want to peg the canon. So I'm running back and forth between the house of silence and the house of shame, shouting over and over with ink-stained fingers on days when I write with Dwende, no one can touch me. This is the weird part when there's just silence. Y'all better give me some love in the chat. Woo! I wrote that poem in, thank you. Maybe, I can't remember the year, maybe 2017. But I felt like, thank you, I appreciate it. I started writing these long poems as a response to what was happening in the 2016 election. I was listening to a podcast, the Commonplace podcast, which is really amazing. And there's a really great one with Roger Reeves and Natalie Diaz. And Roger Reeves is a really wonderful poet, an African-American male poet. And he said that he found himself unconsciously, that when a white woman would pass him, that he would kind of get out of the way. And he was training to interrogate that. And he said that I found myself doing that on the page. And so he started writing these long poems. And I had to like pull over my car because I had also been making myself small in my life and even smaller on the page. And so I wanted to push back against that constriction. And I think poetry is a type of organization of breath. And I wanted to reach a type of breathlessness. And so that poem kind of barreled out of me. And I think finding out that Sharon Olds loves The Bachelorette and that sense of permission and kind of pulling on this pop culture reference, but then pulling in the world of the gays and desire and the Black body. I wanted to kind of plait and weave and then untangle all of those things in that poem. So I wanted to start off with that. Thank you all for the love. I feel like I forced it, but it makes me feel good. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna read some poems from my collection. I can't talk about the trees of the blood. I don't know, y'all really talked about Cottonmouth a lot in my earlier discussion today. And I don't know if I've actually ever read this whole poem out loud before. So this will be my first time. So I really appreciate y'all spending time with the poem, Cottonmouth. The man's mouth unhinged. He said, I broke my jaw and it opens like this now. I heard the wet click of little bones unfastening. I woke up before anyone else and walked outside barefoot on the chilled porch, still slick with a thin layer of morning dew. There was a little coral snake asleep, coiled by a rocking chair. I wasn't afraid this time. We were told the snake was the most beautiful thing God created until the snake wanted to be God or like a God or godlike. I'm not sure now. It happened again. The same dream. I have seen 3 women give birth, and with each contraction, the mighty hips break and stretch the leathery mouth of a snake. I watched as they writhed inside the all-consuming pain, pure as God, fist clenched, wailing something not quite human, but animal enough. Once she swallowed a snake till she became the snake, looping, legless reptile, thick and aching. She woke up paralyzed until she shouted, Jesus, her arms grasping the invisible beast, blacking the dark. The guy with the broken mouth baptized me once inside a Pentecostal church. He said I had to be fully immersed for it to count for heaven, you know? He said Jesus' name only, not Trinity, just Jesus. Then he touched me under the water, plucked and dripping. I came to the surface and I shouted and they shouted, everyone's mouth open in praise. The snake hisses like a married man. He measured and whispered low, you better get out of my car. In a way that meant devour, to swallow me whole. Crystalline sweat stippled across his forehead, his eyes feral and glinting like 2 tiger eye gemstones. The street glazed with vulgar light. I felt so vulnerable when the tiny metals unlatched from my seatbelt, breaking jangled air with delicious clatter. I was a good girl that night, he later said. Lateral undulation. We swam in the river until we saw a snake muscling the skin of the water with many ripples, making waves and circles. They shall lick the dust like a serpent, like the crawling things of the earth, the broken jaw, 8 centimeters now, push, push. All I remember about my grandmother is her poof of white hair dolloped in her coffin, a cloudy cotton ball. I snatched the silver snakes out of my black wool hair, a juicy Medusa. Still, I can't wait to be like her, all fog and forgetting. Am I being eaten or eating? Who can say, really? So the dream goes something like this. A snake slithered between my legs, poured out my mouth, one long continuous loop, glossy, glittering scales, voluminous muscle, elongated might, becoming Ouroboros, my body a circle, becoming samsara, entering and exiting the holy, holy O at the center of my deepening meat. To creep, to crawl, I crawl, my mother licks the floor with her feet. I bite John Berryman's tail and Henry runs out of his mouth. I crawl inside John Berryman's mouth and manumit Henry. Now Henry is free. Henry, you don't have to talk like that anymore. What if he wanted to leave his wife and find another keeled and granular body? His belly travels like a snake. She believes her father is also a snake. I have so many dark scars and purple bruises on my legs. I have my mother's knees, crunchy and difficult. Everything hurts when I'm about to go to sleep. The snake is ready for me. Every time she passes this one motel, she shivers at the things she did with her body to the man with the mouth of a snake, all his holy masculine fire consuming her whole. She was taken. After he prayed for forgiveness, not from her, but from God, to make him able and clean again. She is always in that room on the bed, naked like prey. I've got two fangs in my mouth that could pierce you. My crossbite never ground down my teeth. I used to bite myself in my sleep but never drew blood. I gave birth to myself and held myself there. There. Bear witness. And this is after a Carrie Mae Weems photograph, who's one of my favorite Black visual artists. Before I knew how to fill my onyx body with slick measures, dip every curve in my skin with dark sway, I needed a picture. Before me stood a long black dress I called woman. You stand opaque with your back to me, a statue of witness, the door of yes, I can return to the monument of your silhouette to find my longest muscle. We both stare down the ocean to stillness. Oh, Carrie, what are you trying to tell me here? I've been standing by water my whole damn life, trying to get saved. Dead bug. Okay, I said it. I was 12. I was in the back seat of a moving car. I had a crush. I was silent, except for my mouth, chock full of braces and rape. I've been writing around the rim of the word like the blunted tip of a spent bullet. But I said it. I'm saying it now. I was 12. I was silent. I didn't stop it, okay? I had a crush in the mind of a child. When I was I spoke as I understood as I thought as but when I became, I put away things. I told you I had a crush. I'm telling you I was crushed. I'm crushing the flood of overwhelming. What now? There is a dead cockroach in the corner. I won't pick it up. I keep sweeping around the thing on the floor. Tim. I was telling the class earlier, the poem Tim, you have it in front of you, it's on page 28. I wrote it as kind of little mini contrapuntals across the poem. So the poem can be read in many different ways. I might play around with some of that tonight. So there's kind of, some horizontal readings and some vertical readings. So, and I told them that I'm really interested in kind of having mimetic poems that mirror kind of experiences that happen with memory. And often when you have a traumatic event, even though it might happen in chronological order, if you have had or suffer from PTSD, those events or triggers happen out of order, right? There might be glimpses, there might be a snip of a scene. And so I wanted to kind of mirror that process on the page with different kind of narrative kind of threads that kind of frayed, and that you could kind of enter and exit the poem at many different kind of entry points. And so the poem is kind of, again, mirroring that process. Tim. I don't know what happened that night. I was barefoot sprinting across a field of damp grass, and then I wasn't. I was kissing a man, and then I wasn't. I was on a twin bed, and then I was blank, prone on the dumb floor of a dorm room. Then I don't know what happened to my panties. Do you know what happened to my panties? Who took them off? Who entered my body without asking? Who saw my cold nipples and said nothing? Who saw taupe watercoloring the rim of my 18-year-old breast? Who broke my beaded black dress? Who keeps the hours I can't remember? If faceless men came into that room, then they have no names. And if I could scream into that room, I'd shout to Letha Kum, meaning little girl, I say to you, get up. I don't know what happened. I was barefoot sprinting and then I wasn't. I was on a bed and then blank prone. Then I don't know. Do you know what happened to my panties? Who took, who entered, who saw, who broke, who keeps the hours? If faceless men came and if I could scream, meaning, and that night across a field of damp grass, I was kissing a man and then I wasn't. And then I was on the dumb floor of a dorm room. What happened to my panties? Do you know what happened to my panties? Them off my body without asking, my cold nipples and said nothing. Taupe water coloring the rim of my 18-year-old breast, my beaded black dress. I can't remember. Into that room, little girl, they have no names. I shout Talitha Kum. I say to you, get up. Look deep inside the eye of a baby goat, said Jessica. Her command hung at the back of the barn, lush, imperative. I gazed the animal eyeball, needling the horizontal iris, its pupil so alien from mine, a frazzled, bleat cut, like the black bar inking the slit-shaped eye. But there was another baby goat I called Tim, who was screaming at the seam of a corner. And when I approached, he ran away. I knew why. Because there are hours in my life I cannot remember that I want to remember. And if I did, I would have slaughtered Tim. And Tim smelled this petite tear on my hectic hands and breath and pits, spilling black grease from my pores like gasoline, slick, savage with pheromones. And every time I crunched 1 foot closer on the dank bed of matted hay and morning mud to zip the space between us, he kept leaping and running, breaking away from fear. Tim, come here. I'll end with this poem. This is a BBHMM, which is, well, number one, you all should know this acronym. And if you don't, you need to look it up right now. But it's Bitch Better Have My Money by Rihanna. And I'm really interested in ekphrastic poetry that, is responding to a piece of art. And I'm always thinking about the traditional Western canon and how to explode it. And, there's so many classic examples from visual images. I was really interested in thinking about modernizing it with a music video. And for me, seeing, Rihanna as an avatar in this act of agency and retribution was terrifying, but brilliant. And so I wanted to kind of inhabit that space and see what that was like to have that kind of lyric swagger and audacity inside of a poem. BBHMM after watching the music video. I too want to be naked, zebra striped, in the almost dried accountant's blood, sticky and sucking a fat blunt inside a Louis Vuitton suitcase brimming with the newest money. This is another way to see myself too, in the way Rihanna nooses a white woman up by her smooth feet, a blue-blooded pendulum swaying as her beautiful tits look more perfect than ever. Why did that image excite me so? No, not the tits, but the simulated lynching. It feels so damn delicious to say, bitch better have my money inside my mouth. I hate it when people talk about Black artists being capitalists. Why can't we thrive in something rich and green too? And let us be loud about it. Let us be loud without consequence. Remember when we were dating, I wanted you to pay for every meal. And yes, the movies taught me that love was someone reaching for the check first. But there is no such thing as a free lunch. Someone has to pay with the fruit from their body. Yeah, I'm spreading my legs for someone else because I'm hungry and always at the end of some kind of altar. Even now, I'm paying for my doctor to reach and scrape inside me to say I don't have cancer. She tells me I need to start thinking about babies because of my age. I think, bitch, I'm not ready. There will always be tithes and offerings. At my church, they called it first fruits. My mother gave me quarters, and as a kid, I waited for the clink at the bottom of the bucket being passed. I believe God heard this too. Somewhere, someone is counting the cash behind a velvet curtain. Once a boy said, suck it, bitch, with his heavy, dense hand at the back of my head, pushing. Pushing is another way to mean pay me what you owe me. I didn't forget. Yeah, I see the total at the bottom of the receipt. I used to have so much debt. I was forever in the wettest bread. Thank you all so much. I'm happy to answer some questions that you have about poems or the writing life or microblading.
All right, I think Taylor has a question.
Sorry, it might be kind of loud, but well, for one, I just wanted to like thank you because I don't know, that was really, really nice. Like when you were like, you better like force some love or something like that. Like, no, it wasn't forced. Like it was really, really good. Especially the first thing you read resonated with me a lot, especially because like I kind of grew up in like an all like white town and stuff. But I was like the only Black person. So those were thoughts I always had in my head. Like, oh my God, if I date someone, what if they're more than likely they're probably going to be white? Like, what about like how is our first kiss gonna go? If they if they put their hand through my hair, what are they gonna feel? You know, like I always just kind of thought about that, and I don't know, that one just really like resonated with me a lot. I don't know. I liked it a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. It kind of just put me in like awe from it. Like I had to like just sit and kind of think like, wow, that's good. So yeah, I really like that. And I don't know, I talk a lot, so I'm really, really sorry. But you just have a real, like, I was gonna say you have a way with words, but like you're a poet, so like obviously, so I don't, but it was really nice. I think definitely how like hearing you actually read it, it made like the impact a lot stronger. But my main question was just like kind of how do you kind of get into that mindset of being able to kind of think back on things that were kind of traumatic and still be able to write about them and craft them in like a creative way, because I've always like anytime I've tried to like do that myself, I always like struggle. I'm like, I'm just not even gonna do it. I don't want to think about it. So like how do you really like get yourself in like that mindset of like thinking back on these things, but being able to like write about them, edit them, look at them multiple times and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Taylor, for all the love. I appreciate it and your enthusiasm. And I'm so glad that my work connected with you. I think all poems are conversations, and I'm glad that you felt seen. And, I want my poems to feel that way, that we're connecting and sharing and meeting each other. So I love your question, how do we write about these traumatic events? That could be really hard. And the first thing that came to me is, I'm safe now, so I can play. I wrote that in a new poem. And the idea that I'm far removed from that trauma in my life, and it takes some time and some distance and some therapy and some safety and some good friends to go back and access those emotions. And so it's hard if you're in chaos, it's hard to enter chaos. But if you're in a place of stability and safety, then you can enter into those, places. There's that famous quote, is it Wordsworth, like poetry is the recollection of powerful feelings, but it's recollected in tranquility. And I think that tranquility happens when you're in a safe space. And I was really fortunate to to be at Vanderbilt for my MFA and to have my career now where I'm able now to sustain myself and have that sense of stability so that I can go back and enter those landscapes that are sometimes really hard to hold. I think a couple of things help on practical craft level wise. So number one, received form can be a place also that you can enter into treacherous landscape. So earlier I was talking about the sonnet or thinking about a sestina or a villanelle, or for that one poem, Tim, I was really interested in playing around with the form and playing around with the field of the page, because like, again, even for me entering back into that zone, I didn't want to linger in some of those memories too long. So there's a lot of clipped and fragmentation. The syntax is really choppy because again, I invite the reader and breaking that fourth wall into the process. And so you start learning, number one, how to take care of yourself and your own body, your mind and spirit. And then how do you take care of yourself on the page? I'm one of those people that pushes against this myth that art has to be full of suffering. I think that you should take care of yourself. And of course, we traverse these landscapes. But I'm trying right now, especially in my life, I think Ralph Ellison called it fingering the jagged grain, but this idea that, pushing towards it, can you transcend your pain? I don't know if it's possible, but I'm reaching, at least right now in my life, to reach for more joy. So I think some takeaways: when you're in a place of safety and stability, using a received form, using craft techniques. And those first initial drafts, you just have to kind of bloodlet and get everything out. And like, I don't have the editor in the room. I'm just trying to get everything out on the page. And it's really during revision when I have a different mindset that I kind of have a more aerial view on those kind of events that are happening. How do I want to shape? How do I want to let that narrative kind of unfold? And so I say to you young writers that if you're thinking about some subject that's hard to handle, number one, give yourself time and space and permission. And also, I'm just now able at 37 to start articulating some of these things. And there is no hurry. Give yourself time. I started writing this stuff probably when I was younger, maybe flashes or little things about it. But these things sometimes have to ferment in darkness. And I think we valorize a lot of young success. And I want you all to be ambitious and to publish and do all the things. But no, some poems might need to take time, and you have a long career ahead of you, and many books and many poems or stories or short stories inside of you. And know that when the poem is ready to come out, it will come out. And you don't have to force it or to self-flagellate yourself or to like bloodlet your trauma for book sales.
Thank you,
Thank
Tiana.
you. Oh, sorry.
Oh gosh, Taylor, no, don't worry about it at all.
No,
I just wanted to say Sarah Masters is next.
Oh, geez. Okay. Hi, thank you so much for your reading. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Especially the ending of Dead Bug. It was so powerful. I was sitting around, I was just chills.
Aww.
And I was wondering, as a writer, when do you look at like a poem and think you're done with it? Because I always have this problem where I keep going back to something I've written and being like, oh, I could change this and this and this, and it's just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So
Great question. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. I actually just posted this question on Twitter today because I got asked this question yesterday at Mercer. So if you're on Twitter, I highly suggest that you look at the thread because it's a beautiful thread and a bunch of amazing poets responded to it. And it was actually a really interesting discussion. And what's funny from the discussion is that really none of us knew the answer. But we all had different techniques and strategies because it's this, again, it's like the Duende, right? Lorca's like, it's no philosopher can explain, but it burns the bud like boiled glass. Like, it's this mysterious intuitive process that's really hard, like because a lot of poets, if you love words, we're tinkerers, like we don't want to leave it alone, we want to keep like messing with our little poem babies. I think for me personally, I often think about there's revision hacks, and I also think there's the famous quote from Paul Valery that says like a poem is never finished, just abandoned, and this idea that there has to be this point of just kind of letting go that happens. But I think brass tacks when you're first kind of starting out, for me, again, I have that first initial draft. I invite my childlike self to just play, experiment, have fun, and play. And just like, I'm not even thinking about publication. I'm not thinking about what's it's going to be. I'm just trying to get the thing out of me, which is that first act of creation is already so hopefully a gift and miraculous. And I'm just trying to be a servant to that. Then with the editorial process, that's when I bring in maybe like my older, wise and a little harder self. That's like, okay, let's see what we got here. And that's where, you know, you might have that. I kind of think that like a 1970s like newspaper person that comes in. It's a little bit more brass tacks. And that's where I'm shaping and thinking about, okay, let me throw this in couplets, let me throw this in tercelets, or do I want to kind of have the image systems be lined up, or do I want to have a little bit of cacophony in the poem? And I'm playing around with some of these instincts, and I'm trying to get my ego out of the way to let the poem reveal itself to me. And so those are kind of two different modes, that initial process of play and then revision. And then your question is like, okay, so when do you know when you're done? Sometimes for me, the poem is active discovery. And so when I reach those moments where like there's a surprise or a sense of revelation, and I've known that I've kind of intuitively reached that kind of click ending at the end where I'm like, oh, that's what I'm trying to say. Or like, you know, in that first poem that I read, the first Black Bachelorette, that last line, on days when I write with one day no one can touch me, is actually a recycled line from a poem that I wrote years ago that actually didn't work, but I just love that line. And so when I was writing that long poem and I felt myself swelling, and then that line just came to me and I just like obeyed that instinct. And when I hit that, I mean, what do you say after that? On days, you know, when I forget now, like no one can touch me, I was like, whoa, okay, that is my ending. Like that was but sometimes the, you know, the louder poems or the mic drop ending poems announce themselves. Some poems are quieter. I often think of a lecture that Ada Limon gave one time where she like how poems leave the party. She's like, if you think about a party, you know, there's people that announce themselves. So like, all right, I'm out, peace out. Like that's the mic drop ending, right? Like that's the first Black Bachelor ending. And she's like, but some poems kind of do the Irish goodbye. Like they don't say goodbye. Like some poems end very quietly. Or she like some poems leave by never leaving. Like she was like, for example, if Walt Whitman was at a party, he'd still be like drunk in the bathtub, still probably mumbling and talking to himself, right? So I think for me, it's letting the poem do its work. Something that someone said in the Twitter thing today that I really like, I said, when the poem no longer surprises me. And I kind of thought that was true. Because usually at the end, I'm usually wanting to tinker with one or two little things or like a couple of little lines. But I like that when it no longer kind of surprises me. But I still think it's a mysterious process. Like I intuitively feel like there's a click where it's done, but some poems I just give myself the patience and time where I'm like, maybe you need to stick in the oven a little bit longer and I'll revisit you or come back to you. Or like with the first Bachelorette, that other poem didn't work out, and then I recycled that line and it just came to me at the end, and that worked out. But check out that Twitter thread. There's really great comments.
That's wonderful. We have a question in the chat from Rahija, who wants to know about your writing process. Is there a space that you write in often? Do you write to music? What is it that you do to make this magic?
Yeah, I think for the rhyme of Nina Simone, I listened to a lot of Nina Simone, and one song in particularly, I think I listened to 22nd Century like on repeat nonstop. I normally can't listen to words unless I've listened to a song so much that it becomes like music, or I can kind of come in the background. There's a couple of songs that I know so well that I'll just put on repeat. And then sometimes I'll just write in silence, with Brain FM, sometimes I'll do Brain FM. My writing process is very different. So I'm not a writer that necessarily writes every day, but I take notes every day. I think if you're a writer, you pay close attention to the world. And I'm constantly doing voice notes on my phone. I'm constantly taking notes on my phone. And I'm kind of one of those people that I'm kind of like a magpie. I collect. I'm reading all the time. And then it just kind of reaches like a spelling point. I think in my body, it's like, we have enough content. Now you have to release the damn. And so usually I have a purge stage. And then when that happens, like I'll have to clear the deck. And if a poem comes to me, I'll clear out days and just kind of hog tie that thing until it's pretty done. I used to beat myself up because I would hear writers be like, I do 1,000 words every day, and that's great if that works for them. And I used to, use whatever works for you. You got to find those natural rhythms that work for you. I usually kind of write in my office or I'll write on my couch. Sometimes I'll write outside. I mean, for me, whenever that inspiration strikes, I'm just trying to capture that thing whenever I can. I think for me, though, that when it does come, I think I'm very obedient, and I work the poem until that revelation process comes for me. So that's kind of my main writing process.
I think that's going to be very helpful for all of us collectors. Hadia, you're up next.
Hi. I loved it. I'm sorry. But
Thank you.
One of the things that I find a lot just so interesting is that I see like you're almost like a role model. Like I see myself in you, and especially in like your writing. And recently I've been having like conversations with my dad because I've been sharing a lot of my poetry with him. And I had a conversation with him where I told him like I have a problem reading. I love writing, and like I'm so comfortable within it. And I even do that thing where like I just kind of walk around my life and just start taking notes. Like my notepad is just full of just random lines and words. But I'll finish a poem or 3 or whatever, and I just can't read them. I don't like the way I sound. And I don't know, just things about that. Do you have any suggestions on how to find your voice?
Yeah. So a part of my revision process too, part of it is an oral experience. I print out all my poems and I record myself, and I actually sometimes edit off of my breath. Again, poetry is an organization of breath. I love modulating line breaks and thinking about line breaks in terms of syntax, speed, all these things I want to modulate. And sometimes my own breath can dictate where the line actually should end, or if I'm wanting to play around, or for example, in some poems I'm wanting to play around with an exhaustion of the type of breathlessness. So I mean, to me, poetry is so tied to music, and again, that metronome. And so our language and how we say our words and how we embody those words is, to me, part and parcel with the product. But I think what you're saying and what I'm sensing is it's very awkward to hear your own voice. People probably hate hearing their own voicemails, or sometimes you're like, or even on Zoom, you're just like, oh God, I know like sometimes when I do my lectures and it's recorded, I just play it back just a little bit to make sure it's working. I'm always like, ugh. But I think a part of that is, we have those negative voices in our head that teach us how to hate ourselves. And it's like, how do I love myself through those moments and learn to love my voice? And also know your voice is a part of your toolkit. Again, like for me, it helps me edit. for me, what helped me is honestly going to open mic nights. I started going to open mic nights, paper trembling, knees knocking, being nervous. But you start getting your sea legs. And the more and more you do it, the smoother you get. You start building your confidence, you start connecting with people, and you start realizing that the words that you write demand your full attention. The words that you write are worthy for you to embody them through your voice with the power and the brilliance that you put into them. So I think it's tied to a lot of how you see yourself and how you want to reflect yourself, on the page. And getting comfortable and just read to your friends, read to yourself. But I definitely understand that sense of nervousness because it's awkward and it's vulnerable. But I find, hashtag Brene Brown wants you and have that shame wants to come in and say, no one wants to hear that. But it's actually when we share our scars, we build that sense of communion with each other. I mean, you said you felt connected to me. You felt connected to me because, we again, Lucille Clipton said I had no model, but I built this bridge, right, between stars, shine, and clay. Like we build these bridges together, and that's how we get connected to each other. And someone else is going to need your words, right? Someone else is you're going to come and connect to someone else, and your words might heal them, right? So I just encourage you to keep practicing. And I don't think, again, we don't honor practicing enough. I think about painters who would do a lot, like 50 or 40 sketches before they would do kind of the big mural piece. Like fall in love with the art of practice and know that that's part of the process. Like know that what you're seeing right now came from years and years and years where, in my room or at open mic nights or with my friends, or with so many partners. I'm like, I just finished this poem, I want to read it to you. That, this is, what you're seeing is 17 years, in the making, and just know that and to just enjoy that process along the way. There's so many fun discoveries and so many miraculous moments that happen with all those peaks and valleys that it's a really beautiful journey. And I'm looking forward to that for you.
I think it's something we can all be inspired by, Tiana. Thank you. We have 2 questions and 1 minute. So I don't know if you want to do a super speed round. There's a question in the chat from Aaron Harris about what is your favorite piece of your heritage that you've written about? And DeLuca has a hand up. So Luca, do you want to ask real fast and then we can see if we can smush the answers together?
Sure. I just wanted to ask about Tim because I really love that and the breaking up sort of thing that happened, and I wanted to know about how you wrote it and if it all came out at once, or basically just how to write a poem like that, because I haven't read something done that well that attempts to do something like that, and I don't know if I phrased that well at all, but also thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I think a favorite piece of my heritage, part of grad school, I had to trace my literary ancestry heritage, and that starts with Phyllis Wheatley. So in the book, there's a whole suite of Phyllis Wheatley poems, and it's a way for me to have a conversation with her, which is mimicked off of these letters that they found that she wrote to Obor Tanner, which Catherine Clay Broussard says is kind of our earliest example of an early Black women's writing community. And so I wanted to kind of knit myself to that story. And so I think for me, those poems and having those conversations with her, again, I'm conjuring these Black women that I want to interact with, Phyllis Wheatley, Nina Simone, Rihanna. I'm wanting to braid them into my poetic family, to feel their power, to feel their presence. And about Tim, that poem kind of, actually the latter part came first with the goat. I did have an experience with the goat, and that's usually what happens to me in nature, is that everyone has all these beautiful experiences in nature, and then I'm staring at a goat thinking about weird memories that come back to me. And it's just again following your instincts and trusting yourself, and then having that revision process. And I think I kind of spoke to some of these themes earlier of time, space, permission. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, I think, is a really great book to check out of how trauma works itself in the body. I think therapy helps. And then just playing around with different forms and giving yourself permission to experiment and play, have time. So I think I was kind of wielding and using syntax to help me articulate those kind of hard angles of tough memories.
Well, on behalf of everyone at Agnes Scott, thank you so, so very much for being here. This has been extraordinary and tremendous. In the chat, I will get the chat and I can send it around to you, Tiana, if you want to, put it up on your wall as wallpaper of, those days where you need self-care. There's a lot of it here. Thank you. Thank you. What a wonderful, wonderful part in addition to the Writers Festival.
Yeah,
so,
thank you, Nicole.
Lots of love in the chat.
Thank you all so much for the love in the chat. I really appreciate all of your attention and time. I know there's lots of Zoom things going on, and thank you for your beautiful questions and all the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I had a blast.
Next time we'll do it on campus.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.